The issue of Israeli settlers taking over Palestinian lands is a central and contentious aspect of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This phenomenon dates back to the early days of Israeli statehood but has intensified significantly in recent decades, particularly in the occupied West Bank. Expansion of settlements. Israeli settlements are civilian communities established by Israel on land occupied during the 1967 Six-Day War, including the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. These settlements are illegal under international law, as affirmed by numerous United Nations resolutions, including UN Security Council Resolution 2334. Despite this, Israel has continued to expand existing settlements and establish new ones, resulting in the confiscation of Palestinian land and the displacement of Palestinian communities. Impact on Palestinian lives. The expansion of Israeli settlements has had profound and detrimental effects on the lives of Palestinians living in the occupied territories. Palestinian farmers have been forcibly evicted from their land, denying them access to vital agricultural resources and livelihoods. Palestinian communities have been fragmented and isolated by the construction of settlements and the network of bypass roads connecting them, restricting freedom of movement and access to essential services. Violence and intimidation. The presence of Israeli settlers in Palestinian territories has also been associated with violence and intimidation against Palestinian civilians. Settlers often enjoy the protection of the Israeli military and frequently engage in acts of harassment, vandalism, and physical assault against Palestinians, including women and children. Such incidents not only instill fear and insecurity among Palestinian communities but also contribute to a cycle of tension and violence. Legal implications. The expansion of Israeli settlements violates fundamental principles of international law, including the prohibition of acquiring territory by force and the obligation to protect the rights of occupied populations. The Fourth Geneva Convention explicitly prohibits the transfer of civilian populations into occupied territory, making Israeli settlements illegal under international humanitarian law. Despite this, successive Israeli governments have continued to support and facilitate the growth of settlements, challenging the credibility of the international legal framework and undermining efforts to achieve a just and lasting peace. Obstacles to peace. The proliferation of Israeli settlements presents a significant obstacle to the realization of a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The establishment of settlements undermines the territorial contiguity and viability of a future Palestinian state, making the prospect of a negotiated settlement increasingly elusive. The expansion of settlements also deepens divisions and exacerbates tensions between Israelis and Palestinians, perpetuating cycles of violence and conflict. In conclusion, the issue of Israeli settlers taking over Palestinian lands is a complex and deeply entrenched aspect of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Addressing this issue requires a comprehensive approach that respects the rights and dignity of both Israelis and Palestinians, upholds international law, and promotes a just and equitable resolution to the conflict. Efforts to halt the expansion of settlements and dismantle existing ones are essential steps towards achieving a sustainable peace based on mutual recognition, coexistence, and respect for the rights of all parties involved. Enforcing compliance with international law, particularly regarding the issue of Israeli settlements in Palestinian territories, poses significant challenges due to the complexities of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the geopolitical dynamics of the region. However, several actors and mechanisms could potentially exert pressure on Israel to adhere to international legal standards. United Nations. The United Nations, through its various bodies such as the General Assembly and the Security Council, plays a crucial role in upholding international law and promoting peace and security. UN resolutions condemning Israeli settlements have consistently affirmed their illegality under international law. Diplomatic efforts within the UN, including resolutions, sanctions, and diplomatic pressure, can be used to compel Israel to comply with these legal obligations. International courts and tribunals. International judicial bodies, such as the International Court of Justice (ICJ) and the International Criminal Court (ICC), have the authority to adjudicate disputes and prosecute individuals and states for violations of international law. The ICC has initiated investigations into alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in the occupied Palestinian territories, including the issue of Israeli settlements. Legal proceedings and rulings from these courts can increase international scrutiny and pressure on Israel to abide by its legal obligations. Diplomatic and economic pressure. Diplomatic efforts by individual states and regional blocs can exert pressure on Israel to comply with international law. Economic sanctions, trade restrictions, and diplomatic isolation are tools that can be employed to incentivize Israel to change its policies regarding settlements. Multilateral initiatives, such as the boycott, divestment, and sanctions (BDS) movement, aim to pressure Israel to end its occupation and settlement activities through nonviolent means. Civil society and human rights organizations. Civil society organizations and human rights groups play a crucial role in monitoring and documenting human rights abuses and violations of international law. By raising awareness, mobilizing public opinion, and advocating for accountability, these organizations can contribute to increased pressure on Israel to respect the rights of Palestinians and comply with international legal standards. Peace negotiations and diplomatic initiatives. Diplomatic efforts to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, including peace negotiations mediated by third parties such as the United States, the European Union, or regional actors, provide opportunities to address the issue of settlements and other legal disputes. A negotiated settlement based on internationally recognized parameters, such as the two-state solution, could entail mutual agreements on the status of settlements and the future borders of Israel and Palestine, thereby addressing legal concerns within a framework of peace and reconciliation. Ultimately, enforcing compliance with international law requires a combination of diplomatic, legal, and grassroots efforts aimed at promoting accountability, justice, and respect for the rights of all parties involved in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. While the challenges are significant, sustained international pressure and engagement offer hope for progress towards a just and lasting resolution to the conflict.